I'm a take-a-taxi kind of guy, but 5 days ago, I began hiking the 75-kilometer-long West Coast Trail on the southern end of Vancouver Island. Now, barely halfway through, I'm sleeping in the rain, waiting for a boat that has no schedule. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This is British Columbia, this is Vancouver Island, and this is the West Coast Trail. On one side, the shoreline is known as the Graveyard of the Pacific. On the other side, the Temperate Rainforest is known as the largest in the world. Nachalnath people have lived here for 4,300 years. Single trees have lived here 800. This trail, up the ladders, through the woods, along the beaches, atop the bogs, under the water, over the lumber, and in the mud, was never intended to be a pleasurable experience. It was intended to be a lifesaver. There have been over 50 wrecks of consequence along this stretch of coastline. Nautical disasters, marine catastrophes, whole steamliners going down before an audience of lions. In an effort to combat that horror and rescue shipwreck survivors, the federal government built the West Coast Trail, complete with safety cabins and a state-of-the-art telegraph line. That was almost 100 years ago. Today, the West Coast Trail is a playground for yuppie survivalists who think a brush with death is a good holiday.
Yeah, you could have hit your head on those rocks.
All right, this is it, the first step of the West Coast Trail. Come on with me. It's 75 kilometers, which means that I'll be going 1 kilometer for every pound I'm taking. Which is not very metric, I know. And we're off to the races. Today, we will be hiking from Thrasher Cove to Camper Bay. 6 clicks. Thankfully, it's a beginner's pace. Oh God, my ankle's clicking already. Day 1 was an overwhelming day. Myself and cameraman Alan Stewart were freaked out by the size of the timber, by the smell of the air, and by the age of the earth. We walked through the woods for what seemed like forever. We climbed stairs that did go forever, and ever, and ever. Thank God the water's free. Desperate for a change in scenery and hoping to save some time, we slipped down to the beach. A great choice, until we discovered that the surge channel we thought we could cross was actually full of water. So we turned back and we rejoined the trail. And after slogging it out for a few more hours, we finally ended the day in a way that was smoother than I could ever have imagined. Come here, you. Woohoo! Okay, let's go. Huh? I tell you. It costs $95 to hike the West Coast Trail, and as far as I'm concerned, this cable car is worth every penny of that. Having made our destination, we set up camp, lit a fire, and met
Johnny McCartney.
And Julie Harbour.
And you're from? From Northern Ireland, North Coast. About 7 years ago, during my best buddy at home, he'd got like great adventure trips around the world. And in the great walks of the world, they had the West Coast Trail. And I said to Julie when I went home to Ireland, will you do it with me? And she just went, yeah, of course. Well,
silly me. No.
And with that, it was a bowl of dehydrated soup and good night, Irene. The plan for day 2 is to go from Camper Bay to Logan Creek, another 6K day. Morning on this day brought deer. Then it brought more deer. Then it brought Bobby Jones.
I work for KUAS.
KUAS is a recently formed coalition made up of the 3 native groups who have traditional claims to this land. The Patchadat, the Didadat, and the Hawaiiat now work hand in hand with Parks Canada, providing trail guardians.
You see bruised ankles, bruised knees, blown knees, broken bones type of thing. Enjoy yourself.
We said goodbye to Bobby, waded through a trout-inhabited creek, crossed a surge channel, put on our boots, and headed off into the day as carefree as a kid with a white balloon. I can't believe I forgot my hacky sack. What the hell is this thing anyways? After that, it's up Sandstone Creek, through more dirt, down more ladders, and into Collite Cove for lunch. Life is everywhere out here. There are more flowers than you could shake a stick at. Way more. Columbines and pinks, insect eaters and bunchberry, figwort and peas. There's more than I can name, and that's not even mentioning the humongous fungus that are among us. Or the small ones, or the ferns, and the moss, and Jurassic cabbage. I'd like to stop and smell them all, but we've got ladders to climb. Right about now, all I can think is that I must be a few rungs short of a ladder to be out here with all these ladders that are short a few rungs.
Not a chance.
Descending into Logan Creek, I thought I might go mad dealing with the decrepit, sometimes dangerous hardware. Then I looked over to see Dwayne Conlon passing me while doing a Batman repel circa 1962. Having arrived safely, we get busy. There are 10 people camping here tonight. All of us camped in the same spot last night, and we all have the same destination tomorrow. Today, we were strangers. Tonight, we will mingle. Tomorrow, we shall bond. On day 3, the drill is to go 10 kilometers from Logan Creek to Carmana Creek.
I hear you.
With the tents down, the stretching done, and the fire out, we leave camp and let the crows descend. The first toy today is a suspension bridge, and what a toy it is. In one way, it feels totally secure, but in another way, it feels absolutely fragile. Kind of like the West Coast Trail itself, which I guess is why this is such a fabulous walk.
This is one of the 4 great walks of the world.
Yeah. What's the toughest thing you've done so far?
Actually, on this track, it'd just be the last 2 hours.
That's not exactly what I wanted to hear from somebody coming from the other direction. If anybody could airlift you in whatever you want right now, what do you want?
A beer. A beer. That's all I want.
Well, there's actually beer on the trail as well.
Hey, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. We pressed on through the mud, and heeding the advice of the Australian couple, we waded across Walbrand Creek, ignoring the seductive call of the cable car. It's really stiff, they said. Oi, I'm really stiff, I said. After another few hours of traipsing through the forest, we were delighted to see beach. A couple of hours of walking in the sand cured us of that. But it is pretty out here, isn't it? Pretty. Day 4 is the last of the short distance days. 9 kilometers from Carmana to Dare Point, the official halfway mark of the trail. The morning mist smells sweet as the Carmana Lighthouse blasts the theme from Jaws. Hang on a sec, though. That's not mist. That's the sweet smell of hot dogs.
Your hot dog buns ready?
Almost. Monique has run this, well, I guess you'd call it a store, for 6 years now. Up and down the West Coast Trail, there are countless things to capture your imagination, but nothing gets talked about more than this.
It started by accident.
How do you mean? How did it start?
Because we came home, we had our bed on the beach, and we brought pop with us. And the day we opened our pop, everybody wanted some.
Oh, yeah.
So the store started.
Hot dog.
The hot dogs are good, but if Monique really wanted to make money, she'd have a registered masseuse and a podiatrist on hand. But let's face it, a love of hot dogs and beer is not why we came to this coast. Canada's tallest known tree is in these woods, a Sitka spruce that is 800 years old and 312 feet tall. And as a piece of vegetation, that giant of the Carmana stands alone. Really alone these days. Hikers just aren't allowed near it anymore. Question: what does a CBC crew do when they're low on power? Answer: the Carmana Lighthouse. With 4 hours to kill while waiting for our camera batteries to charge, the lightkeepers here invited us to peruse their backyard. The tidal pools brim with so much life and activity, you never want to look up. But if you don't look up, you won't see the sea lions.
This lighthouse isn't where it was originally intended to be. The crew apparently came ashore in heavy fog and unloaded a lot of the materials, and when the fog lifted, they realized they were in the wrong place, and someone made the decision that they were going to build the lighthouse here.
Worried about the time, we collected our batteries, put our heads down, and bolted to Dare Point. Day 5 will take us 12 kilometers from Dare Point to Suziat Falls. Just as we were getting cocky enough to mock the rainforest for having no rain, it started to rain. By the time we crossed into Didadat land, my so-called poncho was, well, it was fitting me like a sponge. Suddenly, this whole camping thing was becoming about as much fun as having to use an outhouse that had a tree fall through it. Well, you don't have to use the outhouses. Parks Canada recommends using the intertidal flush. You figure it out. And with that, I arrived at Nittinat Narrows, which means the ferry should be getting here exactly when it gets here. People say that on the West Coast Trail, their dreams are invaded by images of
Mud.
And mud.
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 Muddy everywhere.
The arrival of the ferry acted as my alarm clock. And after waiting for an hour and a half, we boated for 1 minute, paid $7 each, and left. Guess what happens to mud in the rain? It gets muddier! Huh? Who'd have thunk it? As we head towards Hole in the Wall, making jokes about having holes in our head, our worst fear is realized. The camera gets too wet and shuts down. Total crash. Oh well. The Uncle John crashed right here in 1906, and the 30 men aboard it survived. 1,000 bad words later, we arrived at Suziat Falls. It was a dark and stormy night. I was not a happy camper. Our goal today is 14K from Suziat Falls to Michigan Creek. But first, we have to dry out the camera. With the camera up and running again, we decided it would be wise to get someone to explain on tape just exactly how hideous it was last night.
Okay, we were in a cave down the end there and spent the night lighting a fire and drying out clothes.
Not exactly the endorsement I was looking for. By the time I have my Suziat baptism, it's time to make tracks. We barely got started, though, before we stopped. Here, where the cormorants nest on the cliffs, is where the Valentia touched bottom with a belly full of rifle shells. 136 people died. We gotta go. See ya. After crossing the Klanawa River, we checked out the proud anchor of the Robert Lures, and, using our wily navigational skills, we managed to find the trail access point. Back in the woods, we came upon a pockmarked donkey engine. This forest may look virgin, but it's seen its fair share of commerce. Many men made a good living here in days gone by. Evidence of their labor is everywhere. Many people make a good living here these days, too. Evidence of their labor is everywhere. Back on the trail, we met the male members of a family named
Nelson.
And then we met 10
nurses that work at Maple Ridge.
The ranger in there said to us that she was really pleased to see such a large group of women because she said there's only about 1/3 of the people on the trail that are women. She said it's 2/3 men, and usually it's the dad and the kids, and they leave them at home.
And where's Mom?
Mom is somewhere in Toronto in a hotel room right now. No, gotta be men to do this.
Do you?
Yes.
And you have to be an idiot to still be on the trail at 9 o'clock. We cross the Secaucus River and press on to Michigan Creek. This is it, the last day. For Michigan Creek to the North End registration office is 12 kilometers. The 10 of us that you saw camping together on the second night have camped together every night since. So on this morning, while our boots dried by the fire, we traded our phone numbers and said our goodbyes. And then I lost that book with all those phone numbers in it. If I had broken my leg in 5 places and had to have been airlifted off of the West Coast Trail, I wouldn't be more embarrassed. At this point, we're just trying to get out of here. Looking down at my tortured transportation system, I try to think of why I came here. What have I learned? Well, I learned that it's hard to take a picture of a whale and not have it turn out looking like a shot of the Loch Ness Monster. I learned that the water here is supposed to be filtered or boiled before drinking. Something about fecal bacterial something or other. And I learned where lost chairs wind up.
So what was it like killing a week on the trail? It was nasty, but I'd do it again.
So you don't recommend it, or you wouldn't?
Oh yeah, highly.
Yeah, I'd recommend it.
Highly.
Yeah, I'll probably do it again.
For 1 week, the West Coast Trail has been a strange reality for myself and Alan. A week of fantastical sights, challenging landscape, and great people. Now, the West Coast Trail is just a memory. For Broadcast 1, I'm dead tired.